Welcome to the May 17th Quarry Valley Unified Union School District meeting. The first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I will make that motion.
I'll second
Motion second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
it. Aye.
Aye.
General public comments. Are there any general public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to old business. Graduation, end of year activities. Not sure who's starting here with that. Chris?
I think we just want to provide an update. So the building principal will give us an updated plan for graduation, just so the public knows where we're at.
I'm willing to go ahead and start first if you wish. So West Rutland, one of the things that we're waiting on is just to see any final guidance that might come out. I may remind folks that we had 3 versions or updates that came out after June 1 of last year. So we have taken into account what the board discussed at the special session about a week and a half ago. We have a tent, and under that tent will be the graduates, the speakers, and the band. And we will have folks in pods of 10 under current guidelines out into the field, essentially the soccer field. We're taking into account the setting sun. And we have a committee meeting on Wednesday to finalize what we think will be our final versions of graduation, and then talk more to our senior class officers, and then put something out to the parents. I'm quite interested in seeing what happens with all the new guidelines that have been released. So we've got a lot of plans ready to go, but I also am anticipating some changes coming our way from the state. So that, in a nutshell, is the West Rutland plan. As a reminder, it is June 11th at, I believe, 6 o'clock.
Joanne, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Thank you, Chris. Yes, our graduation is planned for June 12th, Saturday at 10 a.m. in the morning. Most of the details really are ones that Jay laid out. You know, I just want to say I really appreciate the ongoing coordination and communication between high school principals. We've been in constant contact about this and trying to examine what changes might occur. What I sent out to the parents this past week is that, you know, we're welcoming them to bring in their own chairs, but we will have chairs available for folks that don't bring them. We do anticipate that families will have to sit in pods. I did not say anything about the magic number of 10 because I'm not quite sure whether that is going to change. We actually increased the square footage of our tent considerably given last year. So we're going to do a 40 by 80. And I was with the tent company people last week, making sure that they understood exactly where we wanted the stage to be and how we wanted that laid out. It's going to be between the tennis courts and the baseball field. So we do not anticipate any issues should the baseball season go beyond expectation. So at this point, you know, I think we're just ready to roll. We just need to get some final details in place, and you know, and that's where I'm at this point.
Okay. Thanks, Joanne. Joe Debonis, are you on? Talk about Pulte High School.
Yeah, I'm here. So, you know, I'll copy what Jay and Joanne said. Pulte High School, we're ready to go June 11th at 6 o'clock. You know, one of the things, we have our tent out, was going to put it in the back parking lot there. We always plan for outside anyway, so that's not something new for us. to be under the tent. We're just kind of waiting. Like Joanne said, we've been in contact last week. We have a meeting set up later. I don't know if it's tomorrow or Wednesday for this week, but you know, kind of waiting to get some more information, some direct information. We know things are changing and stuff like that too. So people know the date. I'm keeping it, just even learn from last year too. We had things change on like Tuesday and graduation was on Friday. So we have plans in place. We have worst case scenario, if you want to call it that, with limited number of people inside the tent, and we're hoping for a best case scenario. So I do have to meet with, I talked to some of the seniors today. We're going to set up a meeting later this week with the senior parents and just kind of lay some of this stuff out as well.
Thanks, Joe. Kristen Calgieri.
Hi, everybody. We are pretty much maintaining what we talked about at our meeting a couple weeks ago. We're having an outdoor ceremony. The parents are asked to bring chairs. We will have some available if they do not bring them, and families will sit in pods. We'll have music out in the backyard.
All right. And thanks, Kristen. And last, Christy.
Yeah, so our ceremony is June 14th at 6 o'clock. It's outside. We already have the tent up. Sixth graders will be allowed to bring 5 other folks with them underneath the tent, and then we will have others outside of the tent. We will be running it like a typical promotion evening, and then we will have a parade to follow using the same parade route that we did last year.
Are we giving updates on senior trips, on prom, on any other thing, or just graduation?
The request was at the special meeting that if anyone has an update to a class trip, that they were to bring it to tonight. So if any of the principals or administrators have an update to a class trip or change to a class trip, I'd like to present to the board. Do so now, please.
I'll go first, I guess, again. So I submitted my information to Christine to be distributed to the board. We have a following what the board had asked us to do several weeks ago. We have an in-school or in-state field trip. We are going up to Burlington, then to a place called Get Air, which is a trampoline park. It is a day trip, and we are then following that with dinner and then back to West Rutland that evening. So it'll be a very nice day, heading up to Burlington, the Church Street area, over to Get Air, dinner, and back again, courtesy of Ice House Transportation, if approved.
And is this something then, when we talked at the special meeting, that additional funds are needed for, or the class has funds for?
No, I have put in a request for additional funds. It is on the spreadsheet that I gave Christine to distribute to the board. Again, we did not do fundraising this year. We had a limited amount of money, and we will extinguish all of that and then ask for additional funds from the board.
And I believe that information is in your principal report, actually, Jay, if anybody's out there looking for it.
Thank you, Seth. And if I will finish with prom, we polled our senior, junior, and senior class. We had over 90% report that they did not want a prom. We have gone through, we actually re-polled them after the governor's orders changed with what prom could look like. And again, we had just about the same results. They wanted to put their money towards other things, including the class trip. So that is West Rutland in a nutshell.
And if I could add to that, they're also going to be doing a barbecue after their class night as a replacement for the prom. That will happen on school property.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Good. Administrators, any other updates for class trips or requests for additional funds? Joanne? Joanne, you're muted.
Sorry, I'll never get used to that. So our prom, our junior class plans the prom. It's going to be held on June 5th. We are using the tent that will be used for graduation, and that will be erected the day before on June 4th. The prom will be held from, I believe, 5 to 8 p.m. We have 58 students that are currently registered, including 10 students from outside of our system. According to what I understand, those applications will come to me, and I will reach out to the principals of the students who want to attend in order to make sure that the students are in good standing. We have another week in terms of our deadline. We usually have an average of about 80 students that attend the prom, and according to the coordinators, that will still, we're still anticipating about 80 students attending. To be quite honest, I'm dumbfounded about what's going on with the senior class trip. I have been in contact with the advisor. I've been told that they had a couple of options to go to different places in Vermont. But since that time, I've been told a group of parents have taken this on. Maybe Lisa Meiser has more information than I do. But at this point, I don't have that. I have no application for field trips. I have no request for anything other than what I've heard. It was supposed to be Burlington or the trampoline park at UVM. I don't really know what's going on at this point with the class trip. I have no request on my table. I know that there's a process they're supposed to follow. I've just heard rumors. I don't have a proposal. I do know that the senior banquet will be held on June 6th, and that will be on Sunday. It will be on campus. I've asked the staff to follow the directive that I've gotten from the board in the previous meeting, which is, on campus senior banquets as well as in-state class trips. And as far as I know, that is all that I have to report at this point.
Can I interject with just some information that was sent to me this afternoon from the senior class class officers? They wanted to request 2 options for a senior class trip. One parent has sent me a Excel spreadsheet, and if it gets okayed, as soon as one of the 2 options get okayed, the rest of the process will follow, such as the field trip request form and the parent permission slips. So the seniors would like to go to Six Flags, New England. They would like to, it's weekend only. So it's either a Friday night or a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. They have put in the cost analysis of that trip, and I will let you know. Hold on, give me a sec. It looks like before the bus that the trip would cost about $2,024. I looked back at past bus forms that I've used in the past, and it was anywhere between $600 to $800 within the state of Vermont. So I would have to say it's probably a little north of $800 to go out of state. So that's one option, but we are not aware if we are allowed to go out of state due to COVID guidelines. So that's just a request that they have at the moment. The second request is similar to West Rutland's, a day trip to Burlington. They would like to take a bus up there, do the same trampoline park for 3 hours, and then shop around Church Street, as well as have dinner together as a group. And that trip was similar in prices. It was about $2,600 before the bus. And I'm thinking the bus would be about $600 to $800 because it's Burlington. The reason why that's so high is because the kids have requested some money for them, some of their senior class funds to go shopping on Church Street, and as well as anticipating about $35 a head for dinner. And again, once they get approved, we will follow the process thereafter. That's it.
Okay. And Joe, did you have anything for prom? Last time you said something about Castleton for prom.
Actually, we are getting a tent. We're going to have it right at the high school. It's going to be on Saturday, June 5th. So it'll be right there at the high school. And This year, what the senior class decided to do was to pay for any senior that wanted to go. They're going to pay for the tickets. They looked at it, and because we're not paying for the venue, we have the tent anyway for graduation. For the, I think they're looking at $20 a ticket for kids. So they're trying to keep it minimal just to cover the cost of the food and the DJ for that. So that's what our prom is. Talked to the senior class advisor the other night about class trip. We set up, I gave them a date, like June 10th, the day before graduation is kind of a date that's set aside. They were looking, they're saying it was hard to find places, what to do inside the state of Vermont. So I told them, by the end of this week, we needed to have something if we were going to look at doing something with that. But they were still looking, but we had at least the date.
And is that something that requires funds, or they have funds?
They have funds, yes.
Okay.
We should be all set, depending on, again, like Joanne said, seeing if, or Phyllis said, if, they can go out of state, then it might be something a little different and the funds might need for the busing, just the increased cost in the bus. But, and we're doing the same thing like Joanne said with the prom. We have our prom contracts for out of non-Polteny High School students, and they need to be into the office by next Friday so we can call around and make sure everything's kosher.
Okay. So what is the pleasure of the board? You've heard options and from all three high schools for different trips. For prom, it doesn't seem like there's any consideration other than I believe Proctor last time said they would require funds. I didn't see what that request was. Was there a number for that?
Yes, there is a number for that. Alina, if you're on board, I know that you have the final budget because that's been a little bit of a flowing number, around 3,700.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Yes, we have definitive prices for a lot of the vendors, but some of them we have to wait until we get the final head count, such as for the catering. So we have estimated costs on there, and the Google Doc that Joanne has all of the most current costs as we know them so far.
Is that Google Doc in the report?
It is not in the report because that's a fluid document. I'm happy to send that to the board. We started out with a budget of about 3,200, and I think it's a little higher at this point. It's not 5,000 based on what we've been talking about, but I'm happy to share that with the board. I guess I would prefer to have the final numbers before you vote on a final number, but it will definitely be under 5,000.
And then do any of the principals, when we're talking about, and I think we're calling it different things, class night, senior banquet, requesting funds for that?
We are
Yes.
okay at Proctor. Oh, sorry, Jay. Sorry, Jay.
No, go ahead, Phyllis.
We are okay with funds for the senior banquet. We just got the update from the caterer, so we're okay there between the funds that the senior class has.
To answer your question, Lisa, yes, we are requesting funds for senior night for the barbecue to help cover some of the costs of the barbecue, along with other things that are listed on my spreadsheet.
Okay. And Joe, are you doing something like that?
We are not at this time, unless, if the senior trip doesn't pan out, then we might do something on that day as well, do something with the seniors. But.
Okay. So what is the pleasure of the board?
May I please make a special request? I'm working off of the board's directive last meeting that we are not going to any out-of-state trips. Whatever the board decides, I need to have some clear direction concerning whether that still applies or not.
And I just want to clarify for the board that the guidance states that out-of-state travel is permissible, but strongly discouraged. Okay, just for clarity, so.
Yeah, so since nobody else is starting off here, I'll throw in my 2 cents. Personally, I'm still pretty leery of any out-of-state travel, based off the history of the situation, albeit fully understanding that the actual requirements are different now than they were the last time we spoke about this topic. Personally, I would still be much more comfortable if we kept things to an in-state sort of senior trip model, or for any class trip model for that matter. But happy to hear what else what the other board members have to say.
I would say it's individual choice.
What does that mean, Mike? Individual choice per school?
Well, I mean,
Is that what you're saying?
yes, it's up to the school and the students involved and the parents. If they're all in agreement with it, then that's their choice. If that's the way I would allow it to be.
Nate?
I think if it's permissible but discouraged and we can safely make it happen, and you get a good number of people on board that want to go there, I think who are we to say no at this time? I mean, that's my opinion.
Kristen Ross?
I am probably more leaning towards the cautious side. But if the state is strongly discouraging it at this point, maybe that'll change in a month. But in terms of planning, I would lean towards trying to keep it in state, because out of state means, could mean Granville, New York, which is fine. But it could also mean, New York City, which may or may not be fine in a few weeks from now. So, I'm leaning toward pushing towards in-state and being consistent, giving all the principals a consistent guidelines.
Kristen Wetman?
I see Joanne's hand is raised, so I don't know if she wanted to share something before I give my thoughts.
Sure.
Is that okay? So, I respect where the board is at this point. I really do. I know that with the changing guidance, please believe me, principals and superintendent, it's been a moving target. It's been very, very difficult, because what this has created in the community is a lot of confusion about the information that we get out to them, right? And it affects trust and communication and all of that. I just want you to be aware of a couple of things. Depending on the timing of this trip, if you choose to allow our students to go out of state, which I totally understand the impact of all of this, and we want to give our kids the best experience possible. I can't tell you that I have staff. I haven't had time. I didn't know where this decision was going. I don't know if I have staff that are willing to go out of state, number one, okay? And then number two, from what I understand, and Chris probably has more information than I do, I don't think there's any other district in the state of Vermont, whether that matters to you or not, that is going out of state. So this comes with a cost. And I want to make sure, if you decide this, that we are well informed and that we have the information we need to make the best decisions for our kids. I just don't know that I can promise you that we can deliver a school-sponsored trip with the appropriate staff to be able to attend at this point, because I haven't been able to talk to anyone about it. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. I'm really glad that the senior classes are going to be able to get to do a trip. I'm sure we weren't even sure that was going to happen. And so I kind of would lean towards the cautious side as well. Like, I know the Great Escape was mentioned, so I'm assuming that's the one in sort of Queensbury, Glens Falls area. But, having in-laws in the area and knowing the license plates that you see there, I mean, I think there's a chance we're putting our students at risk. And then, as Joanne mentioned, we're asking adults to also go out of state, which they might not be comfortable with. So I think I would probably lean towards in-state trips.
Jessica?
Yes. Well, I think it's probably best that they stay in state with everything that's going on, with everything kind of up in the air. You know, there's plenty of things to do in our great state that, you know, would be a great trip for the kids to experience. So I'm definitely leaning towards the in-state trip.
Joanne? Did you have something else, Joanne? Your hand is up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I never took it off. Whoa, sorry. Lower it. Sorry.
Well, I guess I would go along with Mike and Nate. I think that when we talk about seeing license plates, you can go to Hannaford's and have the same experience as seeing license plates from all over. And as Chris said, it is permissible. It's just not encouraged. Most of our kids, a lot of our kids have been out working on the front line. Some of them, many of them are vaccinated because they've been frontline workers. So, and with respect to having chaperones, we certainly have gone on numerous trips that parents have chaperoned with the limited number of school staff. In fact, some trips have been required like that. So, what would the board like to do?
Sorry, Lisa, this is Kristen Ross. Is Tom on? There's a phone number there that I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry,
whose
Tom.
that is if
I
Tom is
can
there.
only see so many people. Tom, I'm sorry, I skipped over you. My error.
Yeah, I would say in-state would be good, but like I say, I'll go with the majority. And then as far as schools asking for money for class night, graduation, prom, class trips, I think it should be kind of equal, as long as one school doesn't get, you know, way above another one. Or sounds like Pulteney's not looking for too much, but if the other schools are, Pulteney should get thrown some money for something too. Just my opinion.
Okay.
Another option is maybe we could put a radius cap on it, like 50 miles radius. I don't know what anybody else thinks about that, instead of putting state boundaries on it.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
maybe what you do is have a vote on whether or not, as a board, we would sustain a school wanting to go out of state. If that vote goes yay or nay, then you can kind of go from there.
Is that a motion, Mike?
I can make the motion and would.
Okay.
Just before we do that, is there any way we could clarify exactly what that's going to be? Because the way this is going, just to give some hints, if there's going to be some leniency, I'm only going to go with leniency if we throw that in the neighborhood of something like Mike suggested, where it comes down to a building by building kind of an admin choice. If it's a board making the hard, fast yes or no out of state, I'm going to stay with no out of state, just to give some hints on clarity of the motion.
My motion would include allowing the building administrators, the families, the parents, the students, along with maybe the superintendent, to decide if that's what their decision is. Then they have to plan it out properly, make sure all the requirements are met, funding, chaperones, all the things that are required. But at least we can say that the board is not restricting them from doing it. They're allowed to do it, but in the end, it's their decision and they take responsibility for it.
Does that answer your question, Seth?
Yes, it does. And I have no concerns with the way that Mike is making that proposal.
Okay. Is there a second to Mike's motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Nate. All of those in favor of Mike's motion to allow it to individual to each building, along with the building administrator students, parents, and superintendent to make the determination for the senior trip. Is that kind of it in essence, Mike, or do you want to clarify?
Nope, that'll be fine.
All right. All of those in favor of Mike's motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I will say, Nate, that I have 4 ayes at the moment. Seth, Jessica, Mike, and I'm going to say Kristen Ross.
No, I'm gonna be a nay.
Okay, Kristen. Okay. So I have Jessica, Seth, and Mike. Anyone else voting yes?
Now, was this for out of state or whatever the school agrees to? I'm confused.
This is allowing, yes, Mike's motion is to allow the building administrators, the students, the parents, and the superintendent to make the determination of the trip and then to follow the parameters with agenda, chaperones, all of that as any other field trip would go. So I have Seth, Jessica, and Mike voting yes. Is there anyone else that I've missed? All those opposed to the motion?
This is Kristen Ross. I'd be a nay.
Okay.
Kristen Whitman, nay.
Okay. Nate?
Yeah, I second it. I'm yay for it.
Okay. Tom?
I just, yeah.
I'm still confused, but going out of state, no. Staying in state, yes.
So the option is to allow building administrators, students, parents, and the superintendent to make the decision, that the board is allowing them the option. That's the motion.
Okay. Seth, didn't you not want them to go out of state?
So are you a yay or nay, Tom?
I'm confused.
Tom, I hadn't
Well,
considered
right
something
now,
I had.
Tom, you're basically deciding whether the board has the say to direct the administrators and parents, et cetera, or the administrators, parents, and students decide on their own, and the board is not, is giving up that decision-making piece.
Okay, where I'm
not being restricted.
Yeah, but where I'm confused is some people were saying they don't want them to go out of state, but they're voting yes, they can go out of state.
Yes, Tom, to clarify, if I have a chance to clarify, I would love to clarify my statement so that there's not a misconception, as there was in a previous meeting between our comments to one another. I had not considered any situation other than the board making a hard and fast decision. Mike's proposal suggesting that we allow local admins to make that, as mentioned, I had not considered. After hearing it, I am open and amenable to that.
Okay, Tom, how are you voting? Yes or no?
I'll vote no. Thank you.
Okay. So it is 4 yes and 3 no. So we're placing that to for each building. Moving on to funding. Would you like to set since some of the dollar figures are moving, would you like to set a dollar figure not to exceed? Or how would you like to handle that? Or would you simply like to fund these end of year gatherings, proms, etc., because classes essentially haven't been able to fundraise for a year and a half. Personally, I don't think that the number that each school is asking for is an astronomical amount. It would be my preference if we just funded each activity and then building principals can report back after the activity has taken place.
Lisa, this is Kristen Ross. I would make a motion that we approve the amount of funds requested depending on what each trip and activity is, and including the 6th grade field trips as well. Yes. And then building administrators can either send out an update or fill us in either by the next meeting or sooner than that if they have the information, once you have the final tally and et cetera.
Okay. Is there a second to Kristen Ross's motion?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Nate. Any clarification required? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Anything else for that? All right. Transcript update. I'm guessing this is going to be Greg.
I think I'm going to kick it off, Lisa.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm sorry. I didn't even see you.
it's okay. No problem. So there was a late email out to the board with a PDF of some sample transcripts as requested. I'm going to screen share it also. I know it can be really small on that screen when you're presenting in this venue. So please feel free to use the emailed version that Christine McGinnis sent out today. It's exactly the same file. Give me one moment just to pull it up. Okay, can everyone see this window? Yes.
I put it in the chat too.
Great, thank you, Greg. Okay, so we have, based on your request last month, we brought forward 2 samples for you tonight. One of our samples represents a student who is on more of like a college-bound pathway. The other represents a student on more of a career-bound pathway. And you'll see that there are multiple versions of the same information. We just put it on each of the schools' letterheads or their headers so that you could see what it would look like for each of the 3 high schools, but it's exactly the same transcript, so it doesn't matter which one you look at. And the school guidance counselors are here tonight to help us walk through these versions and give us a little bit of background and information. So Tracy Gallipo from Poultney High School is going to start with pages 1 and 2. That's our older version of the transcript that you could print previously out of Infinite Campus. So Tracy, please go right ahead and tell me if you want me to scroll up or down for you.
Okay, thank you. So good evening. Basically what we're looking at here is the current transcript that is available to the counselors in Infinite Campus. As you can see, it is a black and white transcript with the basic information at the top. If you want to scroll down a little bit, Lisa, it breaks down the grade levels and tells you which school each of those credits were earned at. So should you have a student that comes halfway through the year, there's 2 separate boxes that tell you the school they went to previously, things like that. There is no grade system key on this version. There's no graduation honors listed at all on that permanent record. It can be a little bit difficult to read depending upon if this particular student didn't have an 8th grade, a couple of courses in 8th grade that they earned credit for. the way that those years are set up would look different. It shifts based on how many years, and it can be a little challenging to follow occasionally, depending upon what is on there. There is no place to list flexible pathways, and that is a huge part of what we're doing now. So we don't have a box for that. And currently our current courses aren't listed. So courses that students are currently taking that have not earned their final grade for are not listed on this version. So those are not available. To me, it's just, it doesn't have any of the headers for the individual schools. It doesn't have a lot of the extra places to put the extra things students do that aren't necessarily a class. So we found that those things were lacking, and we needed to make it fit more of what we are doing as a district and the opportunities that are available to our students that are important to the different organizations that these transcripts would be sent to in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. So if you scroll down and you start on pages 3 to 5 of your sample PDF, and I'll do as well, Phyllis is going to talk us through the sample that is more geared toward a college-bound student.
Hi, everyone. So this is the sample data that will look like for all 3 schools for a college-bound student. So you'll see on top, it has the header of Pulteney that will look different depending on the school you're at. And you'll see all the way to the right, there's the class size, the GPA, the rank if chosen, the diploma date for the end of the year, the Latin honors, and the academic achievement, such as valedictorian and salutatorian. All the way to the left, you'll see the grading system key. So exceeding proficiency, because we are a proficiency-based grading and reporting school, it's showing 3.5 to a 4.0. That's exceeding. 3.0 to a 3.4 is meeting, and below 2.0 to 2.9 is approaching. So if you scroll down, you'll see some of the courses that a high school student could take and that would show up on his or her transcript. So you'll see some honors level courses, some AP level courses. You'll see some dual enrollment courses, such as intro to digital marketing. And if you keep going down, you'll see the current courses. So those are the courses that the student is currently enrolled in. So if this was a senior student, that's their senior courses that they're currently enrolled within: AP Calc, AP Lit, Intro to Marketing, and Global Music. You'll also see right above that a flexible pathway box. This is for the students who are choosing to take an internship or a flexible pathway, such as a Governor's Institute course over the summer, and that will be noted on this transcript. If you choose to also have absences on the transcript, you'll see them to the right of the box. This is pretty much every box, every choice option box put on this transcript, so you guys can see what it would look like with all the options on the transcript. If you keep going down, you'll see the header for the next school. So you could just scroll down a little bit, Lisa, please. Thank you. So there's Proctor, same sample data, and then there's West Rutland.
Thank you, Phyllis.
You got it.
So if you continue in your PDF, it'll be pages 6 through 8. Lauren Louiselle from West Rutland is going to talk us through a sample for a student who's more on a career-bound pathway.
Hello, this is Lauren. So I'll look at your screen share here. Lisa, could you go to the West Rutland one? Just to show our heading. Thank you. Okay, so this transcript, we thought it would be good to share a student who is pursuing the working world, looking at employment right after high school. So if you can imagine yourself as an employer and looking at this, specifically construction manager at a company. So this particular student is in a senior year. So you can see from his courses here that he was accepted into Stafford his 10th grade year. And if you scroll down, Lisa, his junior year, he also spent time at Stafford in the construction tech program. So specifically with this transcript, what an employer might want to look at, if you scroll down a little bit more, are those flexible pathways, that box right there where it says Stafford Tech Residential Construction Co-op. That was a learning opportunity that he had during his high school career. And also in his current courses, he's currently doing a work study at La Valley Building Supply here in Rutland. So if I were an employer, obviously that would be something I would really like to see. You might be asking yourself, well, this information is also on a resume, which an employer would look at, but this actually is a more official document than a resume that a student is creating on their own. So I think that that official piece is making it really key. And also, just to add, if this student, say a year or two out of high school, he's been working for a couple of years, wants to pursue college at a later date, he would have this information on a transcript from a school that would also show, say he's pursuing a bachelor's in construction management, he would have this information on an official document as well. Is there anything else that you'd like me to add, Lisa?
I think just the top.
Yep. Say that again.
Just at the top, and it's a simpler format. We don't have quite as much information up there.
We added the grading system key. This heading right here, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, just right under the header. Yep.
Yep, so it's the same class size. We currently have that. We don't currently have a GPA. I think there's been conversation about GPA in the past and how we're hoping to get that back. I don't know if we want to discuss that more or not, but personally, I think that's really great. I've had a number of colleges and employers call me directly and ask for a student's GPA when awarding scholarship money, and less so employers, but definitely on the college side of things. Anything else you want me to add? Sorry.
No, that's great.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to leave this up in present mode for just a minute so that I can scroll to a specific section if anybody has questions. But that's sort of just an overview of where the transcript's at, what we're able to produce at this point in time, how we're able to customize it based on the experiences and the aspirations of various students. And we're happy to take any questions from the board or to explain any section of it more thoroughly if there's something that you'd like from us at this point.
Questions? Michael?
You talked a little bit about an attendance record. Would that be a 4-year record or just a senior record?
If we select that option, it's a 4-year record that goes on the student's transcript.
Would there be any provision, for example, somebody was in a car accident and so they weren't able to attend, but they were able to keep up their grades because they were able to do online or whatever the other options might be? It could show that, the attendance was down, but their grades would reflect, that they pursued it. So I think there'd have to be some understanding of, what that really means.
Yeah, and those are the kinds of pieces of information that come in 2 ways. One, if a student is absent excused because they've had a significant trauma, then it wouldn't be recorded on their attendance in the same way as just a regular unexcused absences. But also our guidance counselors spend a lot of time, writing cover letters that go with transcripts and making sure that if there's anything that's like an aberration or an abnormality, that it's explained very clearly in a cover letter that accompanies a transcript or an application. They work really hard with families and students and admissions officers to make sure that that kind of information gets conveyed clearly.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
This is Kristen Ross. I don't have a question, but I think it looks good. Although I have to say, I don't have anything to compare to since I have a 2nd grader. But so I'm just interested in what others think who have students who are older and generating these in the past versus this one. But I think it's clean. I think it's easy to read. It's certainly much more straightforward than my college transcript, which is a mess. And I'm embarrassed when I still get asked for undergrad transcripts for a job, and it's like many pages and really messy and difficult to interpret. So I think, in my opinion, it looks nice.
I just want to say on behalf of the counselors, thank you so much for your support in making this happen. I've been talking with Phyllis and Tracy for 7 years now about wanting to revise our transcript. Right, Phyllis? Shake your head. So thank you.
Yes, it was a goal that we finally met. It does look great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm curious who would be determining what goes on the transcript for flexible pathways.
Well, your guidance counselor is your point of contact for that, excuse me, in every school. So, you know, and they know what the students have done that are school sponsored. If there's something that is outside of school, really that would belong in an application, in a student's application and in their documents. So counselors should have records of everything in school. I mean, if there's something that a family feels really strongly, you know, either should be represented or should not be represented, they would just need to reach out to their guidance counselor and have that conversation with them.
At the start of every school year, I actually have the students look at their own transcripts and sign it in the official signature spot, allowing me to kind of then share the information out with colleges and future employers and scholarship people. So they definitely have a say.
It's a great practice.
And I meet with students every fall for senior meetings prior to sending out any of these records, and I get similar permissions. So, and they get a chance to look at it again, and all my juniors look at it in the spring.
Same. Junior conferences and then senior conferences.
So what would be an example of something that would be going on for flexible pathways this year?
At Pulteney, I have a student who is going to the Boys State. I also have a student who is attending the art and writing programs through Governor's Institute.
At West Rutland, I have a student currently in a work study, a non-credit bearing work study. So it would be listed in that flexible pathways as a non-credit bearing activity. He's doing a work study with a local electrician, which is actually, he just recently was hired as an apprentice for the summer because of that opportunity.
And at Proctor, we currently have a student that's doing a work study with the custodial staff. So that will be going on his transcript. And that is, we've made the Google Doc for that with the custodial staff that he had signed off on. The student has signed off on the custodial staff and myself, as well as our principal. And that when he reaches the end of the year, it will go on flexible pathways because it's non-credit bearing.
So I guess I'm a little concerned if this is the transcript that's going out this year, and all these blocks are going to be there, what's going in them, because I don't feel like personally, and I'll speak as a senior parent, that these have been items that have, I don't think we've followed this plan about having flexible pathways and PLPs and all of this kind of thing. I think I'm happy to talk about the problems with transcripts and kind of the issues that particularly in Proctor the senior class has with respect to transcripts, because we're on a different grading system now. So I am concerned about that. And the other piece is I guess I'm wondering what is the reasoning for having the absences on there. And if that isn't on there, can something else go in that block? And if nothing goes in those blocks, do those blocks just go away?
Yes, multi-part question. So attendance in particular has been requested in the past by employers, and especially for when they're looking at students as potential employees, they want to make sure that they're committed and they show up every day. But it is optional. It either shows up or does not show up at the toggle of the counselor's button. And then, for anything that's not there, if there's a whole grouping of information that's not there, it just shows it's blank. It doesn't show up as anything on the transcript. We had it intentionally programmed that way.
Same for the flexible pathway box. If there's not a toggle for the option to have one, then the box disappears. It's not generated on the transcript.
Our goal is not to make the student look bad by not having any data to fill the boxes. So optional boxes are good.
I guess I'd like to see it. There are lots of awards that students win within the school setting, and that option, that was something we had looked at when we were looking at this myriad of, I can't remember how many transcripts we've looked at, and I'm wondering how that, for example, National Honor Society, or schools have athlete scholars or academic athlete scholars, those kinds of things. How would those be attributed to the transcript? Or would they?
Typically, in my experience, and I've worked in college admissions for a number of years as well, those are self-reported by students on an application to college. And typically, I have actually never seen those on a transcript, and I have reviewed a lot of transcripts at the two colleges I worked at. Typically that's not on a transcript, and it is. There are actual questions on the college applications that reflect exactly what you're talking about, and students do report it that way.
So are we looking, is this just a sort of FYI informational, or are we looking to decide something tonight on this, Lisa? Lisa Meiser?
I don't know. We asked them to bring this back. I'm not sure if this is the final product, or if there's anything else that is going to be done to it, or this is it.
Well, the programming piece is now in the completion stages. There's just a couple little last edits that we're going through with the developers, but this transcript prints as you see it. It's functional. The database part is functional that produces this transcript. I think what you're getting at, Lisa, is conversations about, what should be on there, making that consistent across the schools, developing common language for how we list items in those flexible pathways sections and other sections. So, if you do an internship in one school, it's formatted the same language wise as if you do an internship in another school. And those are things that the counselors have been talking about throughout this whole process. We just need to document those somewhere. But if there are specific areas where you would like our committee to have additional conversation, and we're happy to do that, at the direction of the board, of course. And I mean, we meet constantly anyway, and are always talking about this kind of issue. So we're happy to get any input from you as well.
What is the pleasure of the board? Do we anticipate this is what's going out then for seniors graduating this year?
All of the transcripts that are needed for applications and things like that have gone out for this year. So there'll be a final, for record that can be produced with this system. And then our juniors will always all be getting these as they're working transcripts as they move through the process into the fall.
The only thing I'd like to see is that I know Tracy talked about for those students who are going into college that they get to report, if you will, extracurriculars that there's a place for that. What the non-traditional student who may have been in choir, debate club, or student government or anything like that, it might be very helpful for them to have that on theirs for an employer that says, look, maybe I'm taking a little bit of a risk, but I see that this person, it's in school, is in the choir and did other things so that they seem amenable to being taught. So I'd kind of like to see something in there for the non-traditionals because they really don't have a place to report that ever.
This is Kristen Whitman. I guess I would just add on to that too, and maybe this is no big deal to add that, but the option to add some of the activities that we do outside of school. We have a lot of kids who do, activities outside of our district and our school that they may want to share with employers.
So I guess maybe coming up with the universal language that could be used in the boxes if we weren't designating them as flexible pathways or something like that, for that there could be a heading that could list those kinds of things that Mike and Kristen spoke about.
I just have a question, just as a parent or whatever. Wouldn't students put that on a resume versus a transcript? I'm just looking at my daughter's resume. She's a senior, not to compare. And honestly, it's far less descriptive than what I'm looking at for you folks. I have her 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade year, all her classes she took, no attendance, her class rank, and her GPA. It's one sheet. That's it. I think we're getting maybe cut up between resumes and transcripts, because I think with resumes, kids can list and, brag all their celebrations, but I think to capture all of that on a transcript and have each school come up with common language is almost near impossible because everybody, does their own thing, especially if you're reporting out on things you do outside of school. I think I think that's what we have resumes for versus a transcript.
And Christy, I was going to point that out as well, because one of the concerns I have is if we start to include things that happen outside of school, it may not be equitable because we can't track that. And we also, in some instances, we may not have evidence that they actually did that, even though they're asking to have it put on there. I personally don't have any problem putting things on that are connected to school, like Michael was saying, National Honor Society, and they attended a music conference somewhere through the school. I have no issues with that. I think when we stretch beyond that, it gets into some weedy areas. But I do agree with Christy that typically those things are part of a resume.
I'd agree with you on that, Tracy. I was just looking at the school stuff because I know, there's kids that are in scouts, there, service opportunities and stuff like that. There may be places on an application for employment to do that. But to have something from the school that said that they were in student government or they were in band or they were in some sort of a leadership position or something like that, that would carry a little weight because the school said that they did it versus outside activities. I agree that it's nice to have those outside activities, but that there's probably a place for that. The school things is just the things that I was concerned about, that they don't get left out, from those opportunities that they did serve, but don't get recognized for outside after leaving school.
So what is the pleasure of the board? Do you want Anything else done on the transcript? Are we at the final product? Do we want to be able to include those kinds of in-school awards and activities that students have participated in? Are we only including it for the non-traditional student? Are you including it for everyone?
I just want to make one clarification, and I'm Greg, I'm the tech director, is that any other modifications that were outside of the original plan will need to go back to IC for another quote, because there was there was a committee and agreed upon list of changes, and now we're just getting with the developers just micro changes, like this field needs to be moved over 1 millimeter, this has to go here, and this has to go there. But anything that's decided that is extra or any changes, that has to go back to them for a reappraisal. I just wanted to clarify that.
So in the transcript there are currently 4 boxes. In the 4 boxes, there are 3 boxes that are filled. So one box appears that nothing was ever going in that was always just going to be blank like that. It's just like that for what, evening it out?
That's a box that's built in for habits of work, so that once we decide how we are going to report those as a district, there's a space built into the programming to allow for that information to appear on the transcript in whatever format we decide we want to do that. We're not at that point yet with having consistency of information across the supervisory union and clarity around how and when it should be used, how it should be reported, when it benefits students, when it doesn't. So they just left a space for a future programming.
So where it says flexible pathways, if a student didn't have flexible pathways, you can't type in extracurricular, you can't type in, it can't be typed in awards.
The headers are going to be, they'll appear consistently across. So whatever final header we set in that box is the header for that box. You can add lots of additional things text-wise within that box of, if a student has 17 different things they've done, you can put in all 17, but the header is consistent from one to the other.
So it's either going to say flexible pathways or it's going to say nothing.
Or it'll say something else. Yeah.
Well, I think that's
So
Lisa's question.
A student graduates this year. There's already 1 box is empty because habits of work we haven't figured out. Absences are going underneath that. The student doesn't have a flexible pathway and anything to record. Is that blank, or does it say flexible pathways and then it's blank?
It's completely blank. It won't appear
And
at all.
current courses, if you're a senior, isn't going to have anything in it because your current courses should be on your transcript and be finalized. So hypothetically, you could have 3 blank boxes and 1 box, oddly, on the bottom right that has absences in it. Correct?
If you chose to select attendance for that individual.
Can you make all 4 boxes just go away?
They can all be blank
Yes,
if they're selected.
you could, yeah.
Yep.
If when you're generating the transcript, if you don't select any of those boxes, they'll just appear to be blank. But it won't be blank like there's a box, like there should be something in there. They just will not appear at all.
But the box can't exist with a different header. The header can only be flexible pathways.
At this time, that's how it's programmed.
So I'm sorry, this is Kristen Ross. Just to clarify, so if the student had not done anything considered flexible pathway, but they did have some awards given by the school, we couldn't have that little box say awards and then the awards listed there.
It's not programmed as a text box, so you couldn't totally change it for an individual student, but I think it's a great comment, honestly. And one of the other titles or headers that we looked at for that box was extended learning opportunities, which is a little more broad. There is a section for awards up at the top right. If you see, like the very right underneath the header. And right now we just have the Latin honor system in there for awards. But I think that's a great conversation for us to have about whether we would want to expand those fields at the top to include additional awards. It seems like it would be, what's the right word, sort of organizationally speaking, that it would be appropriate to have those things grouped together in one spot on the transcript rather than some at the top and some at the bottom.
You could make one of those box other so that you could put whatever you wanted in there. I mean, my concern is that I don't want to rush this, but it looks like a great tool for both, you know, the student and future college and employer. And I'm willing to spend the time and the money to get it right as best we can now, because I undoubtedly, probably in 5 years, we'll look back at this and say, gee, I wish we'd done that. So you can't always predict what that future is going to be. But it would seem to me that if you could make that a box, fourth box, let's say, and other, so you could put whatever you wanted in there, so it could be more flexible.
This is Kristen Whitman. I just had a question. Would like work-based learning be considered an extended learning opportunity?
Or a flexible pathway. If it's non-credit bearing. If it's
Okay.
for a course, so they're taking it for credit or to meet proficiencies, then it would just get listed in the transcript for that grade level. But if it's just an additional opportunity, then it would be down in that flexible pathways box.
Okay.
What if where it says current courses, what if that was a text optional box that you can change the header in there as needed for students? So that header doesn't necessarily always say current courses. I mean, that works till you're a senior, and then that box becomes blank. So it seems like if that box could be, I'm going to say text optional, so that you could change it the senior year rather than saying current courses, it could say, you know, I don't know, awards, extracurricular, whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
Or what does that entail, Greg, to be able to do that?
I think probably at this point in time, we would really look at that habits of work section because it's blank anyway, and talk to the developers about what would be required to create a text field in that space instead. It's probably an easier developing fix. But I think that you guys have had some great feedback there, that there may be students that have more significant awards or activities that you might want a larger section for. And I think that we could certainly go back and look at what the standard language would be that we'd want to include in that, and where and how we want to organize that information on the transcript.
It could be a trivial change.
Right.
We'd have to talk to the developers. If they say, oh, this is X amount of labor that is not included in the contract, then, or they could just say, oh, you know, this is a normal thing that normally gets done when people reformat transcripts, and we could take it from there. We'd have to run it by them, though.
Yeah.
I think it would be well worth doing that and maybe reporting back to us. I think that could certainly be advantageous for our students. Board thoughts, comments? Jen?
Well, I was just going to caution against taking out the in current progress courses from seniors transcripts, as a lot of those are sent to colleges midway through the year, and it shows that they're keeping up with their academics. And so that's typically when transcripts are used during a senior year. And so the colleges actually want to see that a student is continuing with the rigor of their courses.
Right. I guess I was just leaning more tired by the time we have a final transcript for them and upon graduation. But I'm sorry. And someone has their hand up and it flashed so quick I couldn't see what it was.
I'd make a motion to table so that they can, further pursue and then come back to us with it.
Okay. Is there a second to Mike's motion?
I can second that, Kristen Whitman.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. They do look nice and clean. And I think they're going, well, anything's better than the first one we had, so. But these look really rock star. So thank you very much. And we'll look forward to seeing the next update.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You as well. Is there any other old business to come before the board? New business. We have the building use form, and that came in a separate email. And you know what? Before, if you don't mind, I know that Jonas has been here and we're going on an hour and 15 minutes. Does anyone mind allowing him to speak about the town of Pulteney's 4th of July activities so he doesn't have to listen to us drag through something else? Hearing none, Jonas, I'm gonna let you.
It's good for him to suffer. Trust me, I've suffered through enough of his meetings. He can suffer for this one.
Agreed.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you very much. So it's not just about the July 4th. Joe Dubanis and I and Kristen Caligari had spoken about the use, the building use for our summer rec programs. I've been doing this for 35 years. I work with Cheryl Poirier, who's been doing it for 34 years with me. And typically we have about 25 programs. This year we've knocked it down a little bit, but we still have 12 programs that we want to utilize the school facilities for. And Joe mentioned that as long as we can follow the guidelines from the Vermont Department of Health. And so what I would like to propose that in our registration packet, we have about 27 pages in our brochure. We would propose putting an information form for the parents to understand what the rules are, for utilizing the school facilities. We do have programs outside that, we can handle pretty well. This year, we've also have applied for an after-school program, which is really a summer program. We put in our application for monies to hire a kid to clean before and after. And we want to make sure that everything is as safe as we can get it. We've also talked about keeping the parents outside of the building. Instead of watching their kids inside, we'd have the parents outside. Like I said, we have some sports programs inside. We have craft programs inside. We have Imagination Camp, Princess Camp inside. I'm not sure about History Camp, but anyway. So we would like to continue this partnership, and wasn't sure whether we had to clear this with the entire board. Also, in speaking of the facilities outside, so the school district owns 17 acres outside behind the elementary school. And that land was developed with the Land Water Conservation Funds. Back in 1983, the town and the school district were talking about applying for a joint application to develop the ball fields, tennis court, soccer fields, tennis court, basketball court, whatever. And I wasn't there for the application, but I was there for closing out the grant back in fall of 2000, excuse me, 1985, sorry. So in the Land Water Conservation Fund, in addition, we did apply on behalf of the school district to upgrade the playground equipment to make it handicap accessible and safe. In the application, it talks about, how the property is used for the benefit of the community. It's not just the benefit of the school district. And so all of that property and the new playground equipment was developed with land water conservation funds, which are on the school property. We have worked, like I said, we've worked with the school district for years, many years, and we want to continue that. In terms of jumping, anybody can ask me a question, but in terms of the July 4th activities, so for 30 some odd years that I've been doing this stuff, not all with the July 4th, but for many years, we've filled the field with cars and people. And it would be extremely difficult to monitor, for selfish reasons. I don't want to do it, but for community-wise, everybody's excited, but this decision is yours. I don't want to make that decision. I don't think, anyway. So we'd like to get some feedback. If you say no, we'll move on and continue that next year. We're talking shoulder to shoulder. It's very difficult to do.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the 4th of July activities would encompass?
Well, after the parade, all the floats and people end up at the ball fields. There's 5 vendors for food. There's a couple games, and then generally people go home. They have their picnics, and then they come back. Say around 5 o'clock, we have No Strings Marionette. We have a jazz band. We have a DJ. Then about 9:15, we set off $10,000 worth of fireworks. People get out of there around 11:15, 11:30. It's quite a busy day. But we're, like I said, if you guys said you think that it's okay to do the fireworks, we would limit any activities. I would not have the No Strings Marionette. I would not have the food vendors. I wouldn't have maybe I'd have the DJ, but, just, we would just limit it.
Questions from the board? And does the town provides the certificate of insurance?
Yes. Well, it's insured with the town insurance policy. It's listed in the very beginning. It was listed as an event sponsored by the town.
So what are you really asking? Are you asking us to say, yes, we'll give permission to do it, or no, we're denying you permission to do it?
It's my understanding, since you guys own the property now, the school district in large, that I don't know if that land was ever merged into your ownership. I don't know how that works. So I'm confused by that. A little clarification would help.
So, yeah, because Jonas had come to me and we were talking about this earlier with the summer programs, and then he asked about the fireworks. And I just wanted, I'm not going to make that decision without talking to the board first, because it is now Quarry Valley property. It is not. Kristen Ross might be able to put a little insight. She's been working with Paul on this as far as the mix-up we had when we initially merged about the property transfer. But just because of COVID and everything, the stuff's loosening up, and they said by 4th of July, everything's good, but just wanted to double check with, have you guys make that decision. Because it is a large, it is a large crowd, especially not having it last year too.
Yeah, so I'll just chime in a little bit here that there's a couple different issues. One is normally we would just do like a facilities use form, and the building administrators would fill that out, and the certificate of insurance or other insurance proof would be supplied and on file, etc. But because we're in COVID times, the town is sort of checking with the Quarry Valley to make sure that, if we're going to have a large gathering, it's going to, everything's outside, I believe, for 4th of July, right, Jonas? For the most part, everything is, outdoors. But I do anticipate it will bring in many people, especially if it's, decent weather, obviously. And so the one thing I wasn't sure about, Jonas, or I think Paul might be on too, if they are going to do the parade or not, because people come in and out of the grounds over the whole day. So it's it's open field, so there's not exactly like a checkpoint where you can say, okay, only this many people in this part of the, we can't pod people, but the anticipation by what I've been listening from the state is, we're going to be able to have sort of social gatherings. Obviously, if something changes and the state says, no, you can't have large social gatherings, then obviously that would change the outcome anyway. But, so we just were, in talking and conversation, we just thought, well, we should, make sure the board is okay with that. And some of the activities that, traditionally have gone on in pre-COVID times, like face painting for kids or something like that would not occur. Right. But most of the other activities are, they're outdoors, and they're not, it just all depends on how many people you get. You don't have tons of people sometimes, and sometimes you do. So it just depends.
And just in response to your question, yes, I'm pretty certain that we're going to have a parade this year.
And Jonas, being a Poultney resident, I support it. I think we should move forward with having it this year, as long as we can stay within the recommendations by the state.
That's I'm not sure what the recommendations are for that large gathering.
But that'd be something that would have to be figured out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm asking for some guidance because it's your property.
Chris Sell.
So Jonas, it would probably be well, I shouldn't say that, because we moved to step 3 much sooner than June 1st. So it really depends on vaccination rates. But right now under step 3, it's outdoor, it's 900 plus any number of vaccinated people, but there still is the caveat that masks and physical distancing are required when the presence of those outside your household. And I know that in a large group gathering like this, where people be moving around kind of place to place, it might be more difficult to guarantee that. So obviously, talk about maybe limiting the number of stalls this year, the number of foods, or just the spacing, just to help assist with that. But I like I said, I do think it's something just to consider. I know that other towns that I've heard are trying to move forward with responsible 4th of July events, in which they're trying to mandate what goes on. But I also know, talking with local police, they're saying, hey, look, we're not going to go around policing the event, and at a certain point. So there is I don't want to say it's a risk, but I think it's one where any large group gathering, you have people come in who will say, they're going to comply, they're not going to comply. So, and like, my only concern is just whenever an event is on a school/town property, is just in terms of what happens if just and how that gets turned back on the school or Quarry Valley. So, do I think it can be done? Yes, but I think it requires a lot of planning, a lot of organization, and like I said, I think people would love to get back to having these community events. I think, but we just have to look at just doing it in a safe and responsible way. If they move us and do the July 4th early, which could happen, then all bets are off, because as of July 4th, according to the Vermont Forward, there are no restrictions that preclude particular time. And we've moved to step 3, like I said, 2 or 3 weeks before the June 1st deadline. So there may be that we move to the 4th of July, like June 28th or June 27th, where it shifts the whole discussion. So that's just kind of a gamble that I think you and the town have to kind of take. So, I mean, like I said, Jonas, I think I would help out as best I could. I think, Joe and Kristen would just, in planning this and working through the organization, we've been doing it all year. But I do think it's excited event gathering is a little bit different, and dealing with adults is a little bit different than dealing with, kids and young men and young women. So,
Okay, thank you.
So I'm
Other
guessing
comments,
that,
Scott?
so I was just saying, so I'm guessing that they can just fill out, the town can just do a facilities use form through Kristen Caligiuri and follow that sort of procedure if the board is okay. I don't know that we need a specific motion.
Right, we're gonna talk about the building use form next. So because I think there are some issues with the building use form. If you've read through it, there's some that just some concerns. But
so,
is
Lisa,
it
can
the
I just?
consent?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can I just make that with this event or others that it's very clear that this is not a Quarry Valley or a Polteny School event, that it's, obviously it's on property, but it has in no way or no affiliation with Quarry Valley District or Polteny Elementary or Polteny School. I think it's important to kind of just delineate those sort of things as well, because I think as you look at the Vermont Forward, there are different restrictions, obviously, for schools in place than there are for other events as well.
Absolutely. And I think that if we could have a consensus to give them permission to go forward and plan this, but I also think that we need to talk about the building use, and there are some requirements that should be placed on this, particularly if you're having, with respect, and the building use form kind of alludes to that about police coverage, the fire department, those kinds of things that need to be addressed and attached, and that the certificate of insurance needs to be attached. That's something else I think we need to address, and it needs to be attached sooner than 5 days prior to the event. So, but if there's no other concerns, I think that we could give them permission to go forward in planning this event. As Chris said, limiting maybe the number of vendors and stalls, those kinds of things. Is that something that you would look to do?
Yes.
Okay. And I doubt this is happening, but just as a point of clarity, none of them are like the beer tent, right?
No, we gave that up years ago. No, I'm just kidding.
It's a girly tent you have to watch out for now. I'll make a motion that we support it based on all the ramifications that we've talked about, however you want to write that up to make sure that everybody's covered.
Okay. Is there a second to Mike's motion to
I
support
will
the
second that.
Town of Poltony's 4th of July celebration? Seconded by Seth. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So Lisa, I think Paul Donaldson had raised his hand. I
can only see about
Yeah.
18 people on my screen. So I'm sorry, Paul, go ahead.
I just wanted to I know the motion was made for the 4th of July and seconded, but does the motion also include supporting the summer rec program?
Right. So that was the second piece we're going to talk about. And just for clarification, who provides the certificate of insurance for that? Does the town provide for that also?
Yes.
To be honest with you, I've never done that with the school.
Okay.
I think I have.
Okay, good.
In the past. But
Yeah, my motion did.
We can.
Yeah, make a second motion, but that first motion was just to allow them to go forward with the activity for July 4th.
Okay.
We appreciate the support of the board, provided it passes.
Okay. So is there a motion to support their summer programs? But this will require the filling out of facility use. It will require the submission of a certificate of insurance, all of those things, which is why we're going to be talking about that next.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Motion by Nate. Is there a second?
Kristen Ross, I'll second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much for coming and sharing your information with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
support.
All right, so moving on to the building use or facility use, whatever you're calling it. That came in a separate email from Kristen. And I guess there's a couple things. It's something you deal with at the municipal level. And these are forms that are approved by the board, not by individual administrators of each piece of property. And I think particularly now, as we're talking about being Quarry Valley, we all have having that continuity across properties. For example, you couldn't have fireworks in Proctor. I'm not really sure in West Rutland how that might go off either at the school. So everybody has some parameters. But I think the second piece is when he said, oh, I don't know if I've ever given you a certificate of insurance, and maybe someone else has, I don't know. But those are pieces that we need to clean up and tighten up with respect to the use of our facilities. The second piece is,
Lisa, just in the insurance piece, I mean, you know, what you guys been going through, most of that property was school or town property anyway, so they had it under their insurance as well. It was that mixture of town and school.
yeah, there was a section of it, but you're on a lot on school property, and now that's all been transferred and it is school property, and so we just need to make sure that we're being responsible for all the property. The second piece is that I know that, you know, some places you might charge, some places you don't. And those are decisions that need to be made at the board level rather than individual building levels. And we talk about even on the form that we're going to be charging because it's a necessity. And then we talk about waiving the fees and things like that. So there's a little confusion even on the form. The second piece is, I think that while we meet once a month, programs should probably be planned out far enough in advance that these could be submitted to either Chris or to bring forward to the board for approval to make sure that they are complete applications and they do have the appropriate insurance certificate attached to it. So my recommendation or my hope is that we will clean up the form a little bit and change the procedure so that the board is overseeing the approval of facility use forms. And we had a couple of problems before, and if we want to talk about that, we can go into executive session at the end of the meeting. But Mike, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just wondering if we couldn't pass that off to the building committee, let them work on it, make recommendations, and come back.
Make recommendations to the form, you mean?
Correct. They could review the form, take input, and then make preliminary presentation, and then we could go from there.
Okay. So Nate and Seth, that's the two of you.
I think Tom's on there too, isn't he?
Yeah. I think he is.
Yeah. Nate, Seth, and Prom.
It could be anybody who wants to be a part of it, you know, building administrators, custodians, town,
I'm
whoever. Sure, just, you
Tom
know,
and Seth.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say that facilities manager should be in that conversation because they're the ones who know their buildings. So, and facilities, not just the building. So, Lisa Miser, I just have a clarifying question just from your, what you just said, your concerns before is, so are you thinking that every single outside group, so be it Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, athletic leagues, PTOs, all of those kinds of groups would submit this to the board for approval every single time they want to meet, or like for the year long meetings, or how
So
are you
not
envisioning
every
that?
single time. So let's do Girl Scouts, for example. Girl Scouts provide a certificate of insurance. They list where it is they're meeting, and they'll say, let's say from September 2021 to May 2022. That's the way their certificate of insurance reads. At athletic events, what are you talking about? Like AAU, things like that. Then you would have, you could fill it out and say they're going to meet every Saturday for, you know, May and June, whatever that is. But there needs to be some level of a record of it and consistency. And if we're charging in one school, then we need to be charging the same. And I think even that needs to be looked at, what the fee schedule is.
So it just seems like this is something building administrators could, I just don't, I'm just not as sure. Convince me that the board needs to make every single minute decision about every single group, every single year, every single month about, you know, using the buildings and the facilities.
I'm happy to discuss that in executive session.
Okay, because you know, we've not had any problem that I know of. I mean, Joe and Kristen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or any of the other Polteny members, but you know, when it was one town, one district, there was sort of a mesh of conversation all the time, and forms are filled out all the time. So I'm not sure. I don't want to micromanage if we don't have to.
We can move this to the end of the meeting and discuss in executive session if you'd like.
I still like to keep it public for this part. In that, well, why don't we just let the building committee handle it? You know, the application goes to them. They review it for the information and make sure it's all required. You know, if they have they can't approve it, it would still have to come to us to approve it, but let them do the work for it, because they're the people who are involved with the buildings. They're the people involved with the administrator in that particular aspect. They're involved with the facility manager and oftentimes with the town. And so let them run that committee. It doesn't have to be any more complicated for that. Let them take care of it. And then after everything's done, they can bring it to us and say, this is our opinion. We can debate it and then go from there.
Is that, or Mike, just to clarify, originally I thought maybe that you were mentioning the to revise the form under the building committee. But
sure, why not? Because yeah, it's a building committee issue. Let the building committee take care of it. This is just another issue.
But to clarify, are you talking about the revision of the form, or are you talking about approving every form submission that comes in?
I'm saying that the form maybe should, the application for an activity should go to the building committee. Let them review it to make sure all the things that are there, the insurance certificates, the dates, all those kinds of things. Then they can bring it to us and say, okay, this is what we've done. We've done all the hard work on it. We think this is, you know, worth doing. And then we could debate it here if we need to. But it would really streamline it, put a smaller committee in charge of it, let them go.
Can I jump in for a second? This is Joe Harrington. So I'm the one who usually collects these facility use forms. They're numerous. Sometimes I get a full packet 2 weeks or a week before somebody wants to hold an event. You know, many times I have much longer time than that. But if I get a full packet with a certificate insurance 10, 15 days before they want to utilize, let's say, our band room, if it's going to kind of be, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm going to have to tell people no if it's got to go through building committee and then through the board to approve each one of those?
Well, if it's 10 days, depending on which way it is, it would be either past, it'd be past the meeting, so they'd have to wait anyway. So this would at least, I'm not saying that they couldn't approve it. We could give authority to the building committee to, either for size or for length of time in the building or something like that, so that they could say, sure, if let's say the Kiwanis was going to have a meeting and they needed a room and they had 15 people going to show up, why couldn't the building committee be authorized to allow them to do it? We could say, a size or a time or a number. So I'm just for letting those committees, at least I believe that letting committees like that work can save time. It looks complicated, but it really does save time.
Can I just ask, when you're saying building committee, I guess I'm confused. So like we have the Girl Scouts, they come and do their meetings at the school, or the Boy Scouts, or even the town, if they need to use the library for something, we just have them fill out a form very quickly, and it's a yes, typically, because we do have a very good relationship with the community. So I guess I'm confused on what committee you're talking about. And I am definitely concerned at how long of a process it could be to get something as easy as a 1 hour brownie meeting approved at the school level. I guess I'm confused about why it has to go to a committee.
Well, if Lisa's talking about us approving everything, then I understand your point. My point is that you need to have a little lead time, of course. Okay, so sometimes we need to tell organizations, you got to get on a stick a little bit quicker than this. It may need some adjustment. I don't know. I'm just my experience in other organizations is that when you have committees, you can be too committed, but one of the biggest resources that we have is our buildings, and so why not have a committee to oversee that? If they need to work on forms, if they need to work on activities, whatever, let them do that. If they have a problem, they can come to us and say, hey, we have a problem, but we can allow them or not allow them. This is just discussion here. So what I'm saying is not gospel.
Yeah, and again, what I would say is West Rutland Schools, the community center, the building is used constantly all the time. I'm just trying to see how logistically this would work.
If you have an annual meeting, let's say the Scouts meet there every month. Okay, you don't need to get permission from them. The stuff that goes on, you get permission once a year for it. You don't need to do it every month, in my view. Okay, it's the special things that may come up. Let's say the Rutland County Knitters Association wants to have a big knit off, in our gym. Well, they need to plan ahead, and one of those things in planning ahead is making sure they have a place and permission to do it. It's not really that difficult. If they haven't planned ahead, it's not our fault; it's their fault.
Well, right now, I mean, I'm just. In my opinion, it's working now. I mean, I don't know what other issues there are, but in our building, the process works.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Joe.
The policy right now is that the building use form or facilities use form, because it's not just the buildings, it's external fields or whatever else, is with all the materials. Now, yes, I agree that this building use form, first of all, has tons of typos in it, but it needs to be revised. So that's one issue. Yes, let's revise that and make it more clear to those who are applying and more clear to those who have to do the approving. But the second piece is the process piece. So I believe Lisa Meiser is suggesting that the board should be, the whole board or a committee of the board should be approving this, whatever is requested, right? And our policy right now has been that the building administrators do the approving when these forms come in, so it doesn't have to wait for a committee to get together or the board to get together. So I think there's two issues that we're kind of discussing, is the form itself, but then the process that goes behind the form.
Kristen?
Sorry.
Are you out, Kristen Caligari?
Yes.
Yeah, I put it in the chat. Aren't we all using the forms that we were given? Aren't we all using the same forms? I just want to clarify.
We're supposed to be.
Yeah,
Okay.
it says it's
Okay.
a Quarry Valley form, and it was edited last year on 1/6/2020.
Okay, thank you.
Seth?
Yeah, okay. So another thought here. So observing, most administrators have said there's not a problem. Lisa definitely has something she wants to talk to us about. So we need to make sure that we do that in the executive session as well. But another way to potentially handle this would be that, so we get the form tuned up to where we want it to be, and potentially leave it in administrators' hands. And as the board, we put together some sort of a committee, or one of the committees takes it upon themselves to do some auditing of the process and do audits after the fact. And the reason I suggest that is because I also am leery to, as a board, absorb responsibilities that really should be in the hands of administrators. And if they're filling out a form that we've agreed upon, if they're filling it out properly and complete, then there should be more or less nothing that can be found in an audit, if that's being proved. And if an audit that we do finds that there are issues, then that sounds a whole lot more like a disciplinary conversation with the administrator making an approval with less than complete information, than need to react to having us approve every little thing that comes through.
So can I add my 2 cents, please? So in looking at the policy, H2, it does say a school board or a designee. And while I agree that, about the micromanagement, this, that, but I do think there has to be some oversight. And like I said, I have no problem if I'm the last, the person who kind of just checks off all these things. I do think there are concerns about, public forums, limited public forums, and things along those lines. Just make sure that there is a sense of equity. But I think it says in the policy about the superintendent or designee or the school board designee. So I think it really should come before me. And if there is an issue, that's then I can bring that before the board. But like I said, I don't think necessarily everything needs to come before the board. I have no problem oversigning. I do it on a daily basis where forms come to me. I take a look at them and approve them. I think this would be just another part of that process, and that would be still be keeping in line with our policy that we currently have in place.
I have no issue with that at all. But I do think that the form needs to be cleaned up.
I think that's reasonable. That West Rutland's end, that it would go to Chris. That I have no issue with that.
Board members?
I would agree to that also.
All right, so Chris will be the end of the road, I guess, for the application for the use of facilities. And in the interim, if we could review it and make suggestions to clean it up just a little bit, so there isn't any ambiguity in the form that there is now.
And Lisa, would you suggest that the Seth and Nate and whoever else wants to be on that committee be the ones to sort of make the edits?
Yeah, is that something you're good with doing, Seth? Tom?
Yeah, it's okay from my side. I mean, presumably we'll round that out in the executive session if there's some particular targets based on what you're asking. But regardless of whether that's true
There's
or
no
not,
targets on anything. If you've read through the form, there's some things that are contradictory. There's not a target for anything.
Okay, so there's simply contradictions and typos.
Yes.
So we all approved a mess. Understood. All right, I'll work on tidying it up.
Okay.
Well, Seth, I do believe the building use is a procedure, which technically the board would not approve. The policy, which is H2, is something which you approve. So therefore, the procedural aspect of the H2 needs to be cleaned up. So it's not something which would technically come before the board for approval. It's a procedural issue.
All right. Chris, so is H2 the policy covering it, or is it the form itself?
H2 is the policy, and the building use form is something that's a procedure that is used to carry out the spirit of the community use of facilities form. And I agree that the form needs to be revisited.
But the policy's okay.
Well, that's something which the policy committee can take a look at. We'll put that on the docket. We don't have a lot to do, so.
All right, let me ask one final clarifying question, see if I can actually understand this. Is the only thing I need to do is revise the form?
Yes, and I'll work with your group.
Is
I'll be
the
a part of that
only thing the
committee.
group needs to do is revise the form?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Leave request. In your packet, there is a letter requesting a leave for 1 year from Alina. And I can't find it right now in my packet or the dates. Did everyone see that in their packet? Okay. I'm writing to request a 1 year leave of absence for my position as a science teacher at Proctor Junior Senior High School for next year, 2021 to 2022, to take on the instructional coach position for the GRCSU team innovation. I've greatly enjoyed my time and look forward to this new exciting opportunity. A motion would be in order to approve Alina's leave request.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, motion passes by majority. Approval of minutes. The April 19th, 2021 minutes are in your packet. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the minutes? If not, a motion would be in order to approve the minutes as presented.
This is Kristen Ross. I'll move to approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Kristen Whitman, I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Motion passes by majority. Approval of warrants. Warrants are sent to you via your email to review. Any questions should be sent to Lewis. A motion would be in order to approve the warrants as presented.
This is Kristen Ross. I'll move to present the warrants as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Lisa. As we approach hour two, I'll try to keep this as brief as I can. There are some things I do want to touch upon. So the recovery plan updates, we have submitted our phase one and has been approved by the state. If you do recall, phase one has taken a look at the data sources were used across the 4 domains. We looked at the interpretation of student needs based upon the data that we collected, as well as preliminary thoughts as to how best to address these needs. The committees, there's one large committee, and the three smaller subcommittees been working very hard on phase 2 and phase 3. We will be looking to submit our phase 3 or our final document to the state by June 1st. We have more updates. We'll provide you with that. Moving on, we talked a little bit about the Vermont Forward Plan. I just want to kind of touch upon some things because with Governor Scott last Friday, easing the mask mandate and then shifting the state to step 3, there has been a lot of confusion in terms of what that will mean for schools or what that means for us. As of today, I would say as of today, we are still instructed to follow AUE's guidance in the Strong and Healthy Year, as well as the events and gatherings provisions in the Vermont Forward Plan. So therefore, in schools currently, all staff and students are still expected to wear masks, as well as in any sort of school-related events. So I know that families have asked. I've had phone calls about this. I know staff members have asked, but like I said, Dan French has clarified, said that we still are operating under the guidance. If there is a change, we'll let you know right away. The Quarry Valley administrators have been working with staff on developing summer academic and enrichment programs in each of their buildings. We've been, myself, Lewis and Lisa Madison have been looking at funds and approval, and I think we have some really strong offerings for our kids this summer. I think it's we're going to take a look at is particularly with the 7 through 12 is not just limited to one building. If there's an opportunity for a program that's being offered in one of our schools, that students from any one of our communities can access that program. So if a Polton student wants to access a program or offering at West Rutland, they would be able to. So the building administrators will provide you with a little more information about that as they have that. Vaccines, just going to update you. As we all know, last week, May 13th, 12 and up are now eligible to receive vaccines. If any families are interested, obviously, go to the Department of Health website or reach out to the school nurses. School meals, I say this every month, but I just want to remind people that they will be provided all summer. So if you have not yet, please, start working with your building administrator on setting up school meals. I know that we discussed this last week, but we will not have a delivery. So this summer it'll be a pickup option only for families. So that's just something to keep in mind. If that's going to be a hardship, we need to start, talk to your building principals and let them know and try to find other solutions to that issue, that problem. The Agency of Education, Dan French, they're in the process of preparing new health and safety guidance for the 2021-2022 school year. Hopefully we'll have that by the end of this month, early June at the latest. Once we have that, we will kind of release that. It will be nice for our administrators and our staff to get that guidance so early that we do have a summer to kind of plan and prep for what things may look like in the fall. We do know that, in speaking with Dan French and listening to other state officials and representatives, that next fall the plan is to be in person 5 days a week. We'll be back on a normal schedule. So that is how we're moving forward, unless the guidance or things tell us differently. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to Joanne Canning. This is her final board meeting tonight. She stepped in as an interim in December, very difficult position to step into mid-year, particularly during the COVID year and everything else. But I just want to say thank you to Joanne for everything she's done and trying to steady the ship at Proctor and work with the community members. I do wish her the best of luck. I don't feel too bad for her because she's heading off to Hawaii. So it's a little bit better than Proctor. I mean, just a little bit. I mean, I think we could probably grow palm trees in Proctor for parts of the year, but I think, like I said, she's off just doing some great things. But I just want to publicly say thank you, Joanne, for helping us out, and I wish you the best of luck. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. Principals reports. Christy?
Sure. So in my principal's report, hopefully you guys had a chance to read it. As requested, I did outline what our PLC looks like on our early release on Wednesdays. The board had asked for that. So I summarized the 2 focal points, mathematics and literacy. It is quite lengthy, but I just wanted to let you know what we've been doing. I want to give a lot of credit to my teachers for the hard work they have been doing in the area of literacy and math during the pandemic. We have been able to make some great changes through our school improvement funds that we receive. So if you could just, take a look through those, and if you have any questions around that. If you take a look at my events, we have a lot of things coming up. For those of you who are new to Proctor, we always have a flower show. So this is something that we encourage all families to participate in. There are different themes that students can make different flower displays, and we will be having that back in person this year on June 4th. So it's open to the community, and we'll make sure we're following the social distancing guidelines and masks and whatnot. But students can make any projects based around like patriotic, nature, fairy gardens. We get some very, very creative things. And this has been going on for quite some time at Proctor since I've been there. Prior, it's been going on for a long time. But typically we have community members that come in and do some judging. We won't have that part of it this year. All students will receive different packets of flowers and things like that as just to participate. And we're excited to have that back in person. We did it virtually last year, but super excited to have that back. We are happy to bring back our pool days. We had to do it a little bit differently this year, but we are going to be able to have students head over to the Proctor pool in smaller groups. Typically, this is something we do as a school-wide event. However, given the circumstances, we're going to break it down. We're going to be doing our traditional kickball game, 6th graders versus the staff. That's always a fun thing the kids look forward to. Let's see. Just scrolling down through my report. It's quite lengthy, so I apologize for that. Like Mr. Sell has reported, I'm pretty happy with our summer program. We have several students. I think we have 62 students that are signed up to participate in either literacy or math. So we're recruiting some additional tutors, which is very exciting. And we'll have literacy component with our librarian, and also we'll be having an art component as well. So that will be going from July 4th to August 4th, or July 6th to August 6th. And that is it. Does anybody have any questions in particular around our PLC and things we've been doing, or?
Great, thank you.
Chrissy, I don't have any questions, but
Kristen.
just thank you for including that. I will look it over more, but I appreciate all of the information you provided.
You're welcome.
Kristen?
Hi again. So a lot has been going on trying to get us through the end of the year. We've been having transition meetings to discuss students' placements for the fall. Wednesday, we will have our kindergarten meet and greet. Parents have signed up in small groups, so we will be meeting them virtually. Very excited to see our new families. Also on Wednesday, we are having our second session of jump rope training. All staff except for grades 5 and 6 will be involved in that training because 5th and 6th grade teachers are currently using jump rope as a platform. Teachers are working on the end of year reflections, and I'm working on summative evals for all of the teachers on the formal evaluation cycle. Our 5th grade science assessments start tomorrow. We had to do a lot of rearranging of furniture and classrooms so we could fit everyone in because of our mixed grades. We're very excited about our new SEL program, 7 Mindsets. There is a link in there in the report if you want to check it out in a little more detail. We will have our first training on one of the end of the year PD days, June 16th. I also have a chart included in my report talking about what we've used our time on Wednesdays for. We're looking forward. We have an outdoor concert coming up next week. We're going to do a ceremony for Memorial Day, as well as each class has songs they're going to sing. So I want to thank Jen Colty. She's going to be helping us live stream it and record it for YouTube. I'd like to send out a thank you to the PTO. They sent the teachers wonderful messages, goodies, and the sidewalk art was really appreciated by everyone. Thank you so much. And last but not least, I want to congratulate our 6th grade scholar leaders, Amelia Dupel and Lucas Messer. They will be honored at a virtual ceremony on June 2nd by the New England League of Middle Schools. Oh, one more thing. There is a link in my report also to the grade configurations and potential numbers for next year.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Kristen? Joanne?
Thanks, Lisa. I'm not going to regurgitate everything in my report. I did thank you, Chris, for the shout out. I did want to take this opportunity to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to serve the students and the staff in the community in Proctor. This really has been a lot of fun for me. When if you don't know, I was returning from Kuwait as a superintendent for the last couple of years, and I found myself just like, not going back, not doing my international thing, and I was looking for my next challenge. And, I was really pleasantly able to come to Proctor and serve in this capacity. So it really has been an honor. I've loved the kids. It has been just a special part of my week, and the staff. And I want to give a specific shout out to Jay and Joe and Joe. You've been great partners. I've really appreciated, being able to call you guys and, to coordinate and to get some common messages as high school principals together. And also, Christy, thank you so much for giving me an orientation to Proctor and, kind of calling me off the ledge every once in a while when I have to call you with a, with a question or a concern. So she has been fabulous. And, even though I haven't been able to really meet all of you in person, I can see that you all care very, very, very intensely about your communities. So I do wish you well going forward. And specifically, I want to wish Jen McLemore all the luck in the world. She has been great. I have to tell you, for a person that's working in two worlds, I have been in contact with her every week. We have a conference call, and she's extremely interested in staying on top of what's going on. And so I think the transition between myself and Jen is going to be seamless. And I just want to offer to you, Jen, anything that you need between now and July 28th. I'm going to be on a plane to Hawaii. And sorry, board, but I did say that maybe we'll do an admin retreat sometime in September. So maybe you'll approve that or maybe you won't. But anyway, thank you again. I'll answer any questions about my report, but really has truly been an honor. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Joe.
Good evening again, everybody. So just a few quick things to add to my report too. We talk about getting back to normalcy or what we typically do. We are having our Art National Honor Society is having inductions next month on Wednesday the 9th. We're doing that outside in our tent. They'll be putting the tent up next week, and it's going to be up for a couple of weeks. Just because we didn't ask for that, but they said they can't find them. They got tents, but they don't have people to put them up. So he said, ask if we can put it up early. So we're going to utilize it while we can. There's an art day in Polteny on Wednesday, June 2nd. It'll be outdoors on the sidewalks. And our school usually participates in that. They have just different artist guilds from around the area set up, different like glass blowing, using the metal shopping and that stuff like that. So our honors night is looking to be, I think we're going to do it virtually this year. We're going to try to do a live stream thing. We're just going to do it like we did last year and have the staff record it, and then we'll do air it out on a specific night and for everyone to see. And it'll always be on a YouTube channel for that. So we're finishing up with our SBAC testing. We're continuing doing that. I think we've had some good responses. We've gotten our remote kids coming in on Wednesdays, and actually it's been nice. We had actually some of our remote kids, our middle school teachers are doing it during their classes, and they've invited some of the remote kids to come in during class time. And we actually had one student that is coming back and joining us for the last 4 weeks because they came in that week and took the test. So that was kind of nice. Like, is it too late to come back? It's like never too late to come back. So we added a student into our building. Actually, today was our first day. So it was great to have, those type of things. And, Tracy set up a game warden is going to be in, I believe it's this Friday, with their dogs, and just so the kids, they're going to be set up out in the parking lot, and the kids, we're going to rotate like our science classes and middle school kids out there to kind of, talk to him. This is what he does. This is what the dogs can do, and that type of thing, kind of like a show and tell thing. So it's kind of nice. Again, we'll be outside with that one too. And, thank you for Teacher Appreciation Week. We had one of the Revive Church donated donuts. They were, asked if they could do it. We said they got to be individually wrapped. And so they had individually wrapped donuts. And I can tell you there was none left at the end of the day. They did we put a high number out there, and I went to see if I could get some at the end of the day, and they were gone. So it was a big hit. So we want to thank, again, the community for supporting us, and also want to, Tina, Tracy, and I met with the Rotary Club, and I told them they invested this year. They actually had like usually they give us like $5,000 in scholarships. They had a lot of extra money this year. I told them they should go to the state and invest in the teachers' retirement fund. They're doing such a good job this year, but they $11,000 in scholarships for our kids this year from the Rotary Club. So, really thankful for them. We had a nice meeting with them to discuss a few things with that. But, again, it's great for the community support in our building. We've always had that great support from our community. And, it's nice to see. And unfortunately, we're not going to allow the community to come in during graduation. They usually do the presentations and stuff like that for graduation, but we're going to try, we're trying to limit the amount of people there, especially if we're inside the tent. So, but, appreciate all that they do. And speaking of graduation, Poltley board members, I will be sending in an email out, and Chris, and I believe Lisa, you too, we have to get our diploma signed. So I'll send you guys out an email tomorrow, and we can figure out times and when we can get those done. So you look for that email. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Jay.
Good evening, everyone. Lots of information in my principal's report. I do want to give special recognition to Mallory McGinnis for being a U.S. Presidential Scholarship finalist. So that was wonderful, and big shout out to her for all of her hard work. Things that did not get into my report because there is always so much, and I try not to take too much time. We had National Honor Society inductions last week. In between the rain showers, it was wonderful to induct 6 new members into that organization. Being a K-12 school, it seems like someone is always testing. So between SBAC and MAPS testing, we have a lot going on trying to get our students who missed SBAC testing for one reason or another, getting them back in. Lauren Loisel's been doing a great job trying to track down students because a lot of them thought that they could do it remote, and they, in fact, needed to be there in person. So lots of work around that. I did put in, as requested, information around our Wednesday early release. There's actually a tremendous amount of work that goes into what happens on those early release, 2 o'clock release days. And I also cited quite a bit of information throughout that report on just kind of the comings and goings of what's going on at West Rutland School. Very proud of the work that the staff and the students have been doing all year long. And I did not know if folks had questions that I might be able to answer for you.
Any questions for any of our building principals? Hearing none, thank you all very much. Moving on to contracts. You have handouts in your packet, and we'll move to the professional staff. There's 8 in your packet, as we talked about at a prior meeting, because we are in the hiring process. We did offer contracts and moved along with some of these people. So this is the final, just okayed this. They have been through background checks, correct, Chris?
Correct. And there's one exception to that. The Eric Ray, the Polteny High School music teacher, was not sent before the board via email. I met with him late Friday, so I sent his application packet out for review. So that'd be the only thing. Maybe Joe could just talk about Eric. You may want Joe to talk about Eric before approving that position.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. So this actually, he came very highly recommended. Thank you, Jay. Jay gave me a cold call. He did his student teaching at the West Rutland School. Just graduated this weekend from Castleton State College. We actually interviewed 3 applicants, and 3 very strong applicants, but the interview committee, and thank you, Kristen Ross, for helping out on that too. He very young, energetic. Like Tina told him too, it's a rebuilding year. It's not like you're getting a strong band that's coming back, and he seem to take on the challenge. So we're very excited to have Eric join the Polton High School family, and looking forward to him coming into the music program.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about those that are being recommended for contracts for next year? Hearing none, a motion would be in order to approve the professional staff contracts.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Motion passes by majority. The second one is for Carl. We talked about, we set his rate and then we prorated it for the from the 12th to the end of school, correct? I'm trying to.
Correct. I think it's actually the 12th through the 30th. Or
Yeah.
June, yes.
So are there any questions about that? Hearing none, a motion would be in order to approve the support staff contract for Carl from 5/12 to 5/30 for his for the prorated days.
That would be 6:30, Lisa, correct?
I'm sorry, 6:30. Oh my God. Sorry.
Yeah. And Lisa, there's one more name under that in the new one, the Matthew Lanfear. Do you see that?
Oh, was that in the second email?
Yes, it
I'm
was.
just in the.
Yes, it was.
Sorry. I'm just in the packet that you can scroll
But-
through so nicely.
But I can go ahead
Okay.
and start talking and say that I would create the motion for the approval of support staff of Carl Serrani prorated for 36 days.
Well,
And sorry, go ahead.
and you want to just read off the second one then, since I was
Yes,
negligent?
and Matthew Lanfear, West Rutland School custodian for FY21, that's $16.86 per hour. And that was me making
Is there a
that motion
second?
to approve.
Second to
second that.
Seth's. Second by Nate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Motion passes by majority. FY21 non-union, non-admin supervisor contracts for FY22 consideration. Louis, you want to speak to those?
So these are the, like you said, non-union, non-admin contracts for next year. So it would be custodian supervisors. It would be some school secretaries. There's only it's only a handful or two of people.
Okay. If there's, are there
We may
any questions?
talk about increases in executive session and then come back to this.
Excuse me?
I said we may want to discuss increases in executive session and come back to this afterwards.
Okay. Let's move on to extracurricular then. For the ESSER2 funded summer school teachers, there are 4 listed. Are there any questions about those? If not, a motion would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Any opposed?
Abstain.
Motion passes by majority. We have 3 resignations: Walter Brown, Jenkins, and George Mills. A motion would be in order to accept the resignations.
I'll make the motion to accept the resignations.
Second.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Motion passes by majority. Finance, Lewis.
Good evening. So I have two things for you tonight. The first one is a tax anticipation note for FY22. So this is a loan that we take out each year to cover our expenses, payroll, and accounts payable starting July 1st. Those of you that know, we don't get all of our revenue all up front, so we need to have a loan to bridge the gap between when our expenses start and when we start getting revenue from the state and from our local town treasurers. So the proposal for tonight is through People's Bank. This is the bank that we currently do our banking with. And it is for a loan of $3,670,000 with an interest rate of 1.65%. That is down from last year. The interest rate last year was 1.93%, so we should have some additional savings. We don't take it all up at front. It's a line of credit, so we take what we need on July 1st to cover us for a couple months. And then as we start getting revenue from the state, we'll pay some of it down, and making sure that we keep enough to cover our bills until we get our next revenue from the state. And so we do our best to try to manage our cash and reduce our interest costs throughout the year.
Are there any questions for Lewis?
Yeah, what is our surplus this year?
That's going to be the next discussion after this.
Should we know that before we approve something? Just asking.
We can come back to this in a second if you'd like to move on to the surplus.
Sure.
Is that okay? Okay, so there was financials that were sent out this afternoon to the board, which was an updated forecast. A couple months we talked about the forecast, and I was forecasting that we were currently showing a year-end surplus of approximately $600,000 and change. As of last week, my current estimate is that we're running a surplus of approximately $811,000. It's due to a number of reasons, ranging from savings due to us not having full activities in each of our schools, as well as some positions that were not replaced this year that were budgeted, as well as a lot of savings because we were able to fund a lot of things through CRF funds and ESSER funds that were related to COVID.
Questions?
Sorry for the delay. I have background noise going on, so I'm sorry. Louis, this is Kristen. So the special ed disallow topic is, you talked about that in your document here. So do you know, is that just something by the end of the fiscal year you'll present to us in terms of what that's going to look like?
Yeah, it's still being worked on by the special ed department. So we don't have any solid figures. I'm sure we'll go over it in more detail at the GRCSU meeting when everybody is there. It has been on my forecast for each of the boards. Currently, based on the numbers that we have in there right now, we're looking at approximately $200,000 in disallow above our estimates, which would have an impact to local budgets of about $110,000 across the SU, not just the Quarry Valley. But we are continuing to look at it on a per employee basis and seeing if it was if everything was done correctly, if there was any room for lowering those disallows and allowing more stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, could we move back to a motion to approve the tax anticipation note? Or the line of credit? a motion would be in order to approve
Kristen
the
Ross, so
line of
moved.
credit.
I'll
So
second.
moved to approve the line of credit.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Anything else, Louis?
That's it. I'll just say on the tax anticipation, are loan documents that I'll need a majority of the board to sign. So I'll be reaching out to board members to get their signature over the course of the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay, thank you. The next meeting is June 21st. Future agenda items. If people have future agenda items, they should send them to Chris. Policies. We have F4 education records. It is the first read only, so no action is required. It's in your packet for review. Were there any questions about it or suggested changes to move back to the policy committee? Okay, hearing none, we will send it back to the policy committee with no changes. The only other thing, and I'm sorry, this is my error, I did not add this at the top, and Chris had sent it to you late in the afternoon, the driver's ed. There was some concern locally about that. I think it's last year, even though Proctor and West Rutland worked together for driver's ed because it was remote, the challenge of including everyone, everyone was incorporated last year because it was remote, and because this year it's actually going to be in person, that is not possible just due to time restraints during the summer and the time required to for each student to drive. It's my understanding we're going to be incorporating it or trying to incorporate it in fall schedules for Proctor and West Rutland. So I hope that we will be conscientious of that as we're building the schedule out for students. And I do think that when we have, and this is not me speaking as a board or board chair, this is me speaking as a parent, and this does not impact my child, but just saying, as we're making substantial changes like this that have that are really changing the landscape, I think we need just to do a better job, all of us, about communicating out with our parents and students and constituents to try to alleviate and any of that uncertainty so that we are moving forward in a positive manner and not looking at changes with any kind of negative connotation to them. And so I just hope that we think about that. And I know we have other changes that are going to be coming up. And I think all of us collectively, we just need to be thinking about how we're sharing that information out in a consistent manner. Is there anything else to come before the board? Hearing none, I would take a motion to move into executive session for personnel with the board, Chris and Louis. Or not.
I will make the motion to move into executive session at 8:34.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all very much for joining us. We are coming out of executive session by consensus at 8:42. And is there a motion to come before the board? A motion would be in order to give 2% to the non-union, non-admin, and supervisor contracts for FY22.
Yes, I will make that motion.
I will
Second.
second. Seth will second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. With nothing else to come before the board, a motion would be in order to adjourn.
So moved.
I will second.
Great. Thank you all very much. And we'll see some of you at the GRCSU and others next month.